accept that. All right. So we'll begin once again. Welcome to this family life seminar. We are here to help all of us. And when I mean all of us, I mean everyone understand the importance of acquiring skills, helpful skills that will enable you to become very resilient. We want you to become resilient in your approach to life and in your marriage relationship, in your personal relationship. There is absolutely no way for you to master the art of communication without going through some of the steps we're going to be discussing today. If you understand the causes of marriage breakdown, you will understand that it is essential and it is important to embrace some of the things I'm going to share with you right now. If you have a note, I would like you to write down this: paradigm, paradigm, perspective, and personality. Paradigm, perspective, and personality. Paradigm, perspective, and personality. Very important. Write that down. The reason why I would like you to write down paradigm, personality, and perspective is because if you understood these three key terminologies, they will help you in every area of your life. Paradigm requires a lot of life experiences. A paradigm is your internalized values, and these values are derived from your experiences, like your parentage, the environment you grew up, who was your role model. They form your paradigm. Who was your role model in marriage? You might not know how you subconsciously accepted a particular role model, and that will definitely impact your relationship in the marriage. Your parents will be your greatest role model. In any form their own marital relationship suffered, you realize that you are bound to repeat them unconsciously unless you work hard to diminish their impact or their power. So paradigm is something that every one of us must continue to fight, especially if they are wrong or negative paradigm. You fight against them. Then the second aspect of what we're going to discuss is perspective. Perspective deals with worldview. What is worldview? Worldview is the way you see things, the way you see, let's say, the way you see values and ethics. What forms your value? Your values are those things that you hold and you internalize, those things that you believe strongly. Those are your values. So it's important that you understand how your values impact every aspect of your life. Values are so powerful that a wrong value system could degenerate to a dangerous future. If you have an ethical value that is based on secularism, it will impact the way you see people and the way you see yourself. We might be born in an environment where we had no values at all, or our values are negative. We must work hard to imbibe positive values because those positive values will impact the outcome of every relationship that we find ourselves. So perspective is very important. So I've talked about paradigm and I've talked about perspective. So the next that I want you to focus on is personality. Personality deals with the sum total of your being. It deals with what you inherited from your parents and your grandparents. It also deals with what you have been nurtured into. There is this debate about nature and nurturing. Some people believe that we are the product of our nature, our genetic code. Therefore, you can't change yourself if you are a very aggressive person, or if you are someone who is very loquacious or very quick-tempered. The people believe you can change that because it is your genetic coding. Others believe that we are a product of nurture. Nurturing means environmental influence or parental influence, that they influence us, they impact the outcome of our lives. So there is a debate in personality theory and even in psychology as to which one precedes the other. It's like the debate you have with the chicken and the egg, which one came first. Some people believe nurturing is what influences our personality. Others believe is the nature. But I can tell you from my personal research that both of them play huge roles, regardless of which one came first. We are going to be influenced by our genetic inheritance. We're also going to be influenced by our own nurturing, the environment that we allow to influence us. But notwithstanding whether we are impacted by nature or by nurturing, you got the power to determine the outcome of your life in so many ways. So we are here to empower you so that you can pursue productive life, productive future, productive relationship, things that will enhance you and enhance your future. Effective communication is the key to all communication. And the purpose of effective communication is to code and speak in ways that the person receiving or hearing would appreciate it and recognize it. There is no communication unless the other party can decode what you are communicating. If I am texting, if I am whispering, if I am touching, whatever means of communication, verbal or non-verbal, in any form, the person at the other end must be able to decode what I'm trying to communicate before that communication can become effective. Have you heard people say things like, I can hear you, but you are not communicating? It's because people speak, people talk, people act, and they think that the other party understood them. The fact is that that other party may not understand what you're saying or what you're doing. So it's critical that we push ourselves to ensure that the other party understands what we are trying to say. So we don't talk about communication, we talk about effective communication. And on this, I want to share with you the research we did in 2016, where I used a particular instrument called Marriage Satisfaction Inventory, Marriage Satisfaction Index. So we investigated the difference between premarital counseled couple and then those who didn't go through premarital counseling. And we investigated 13 important data points, like finances, like parental upbringing, and like finances and sexual relationship, in-laws, and all. So we investigated a lot of data points. And we realized that both those who went through premarital counseling and those who didn't have the same challenges. But those who went through premarital counseling had better communication skills than those who didn't go through that. This is why we came up with the fact that we will never marry anybody unless the person or the couple goes through premarital counseling with emphasis on communication with us for about 6 months. So always bear this in mind. You can never outgrow something that you have not been equipped to overcome. So we talk about effective communication. And before I bring in our guest today, which you're all aware of, I'm going to talk to you about the 5 common communication skills. Once you put this down, memorize them, write them somewhere, or screenshot them so that you can make maximum use of them. First and foremost, focus on the context of the situation. Every communication must be contextualized. It has to be on that particular context, on that particular item. Don't try to flounder around and start bringing all sorts of stuff. No, don't. Always focus on the context, because the context is important. It is the context that will enable the other party to understand what you're talking about. I can be talking about a particular thing that may be implicated in more than 10 different contexts. How do you expect the other person to understand what I'm talking about? I expect the person to understand because we're dealing with something, and the thing we're dealing with is contextualized. Context means in the particular situation, in the particular environment. So be sure that you focus on the context as you communicate with anybody. All right, number two, the use of nonverbal physical expression is important, very important. You can't frown your face and tell somebody I love you. Will the person understand what you're saying? It's critical. You can't blink your eyes or close one eye and tell somebody I love you. No, the person will be like, your expression betrays your heart. So always understand the power of physical expression and nonverbal communication when it comes to communication skills on effective communication. All right, number three, spoken and written communication. Whenever you're writing, ensure that you write with clarity. Don't use highfalutin words to confuse or to prove a point. It makes no sense. When you are texting, make sure you are using emojis, terminologies that the other party understands before the person will misconstrue what you are trying to communicate. There are different kinds of emojis all around, and I see people using them, using them haphazardly. Somebody might get offended or angry if you want to put an emoji that describes laughter and you put the one that describes vomiting. That's crazy. You can break a heart, you can break a relationship. So if you don't know how to use emojis, please don't. I don't use them myself because I don't understand what they are. I don't even understand which one is which. All right, number four, touch and affective communication. Touching and ensuring that there is a close interaction during communication is very, very essential. Very, very essential. For those who are married, you understand how powerful this is. And not just those who are married. If you are a teacher, you should understand the power of shaking hands and hugging little kids to embrace them and to show them that they are accepted, that they are loved. So effective communication is so powerful that so many schools have actually entrenched it in their curriculum. So always understand how important these skills are. The next one we're going to talk about is emotional and psychological communication. Emotions are very important. When emotions are high, you must reduce your verbal communication. Anytime emotions are high, reduce your verbal communication because you can be prompted to say something that you really don't mean. Also, be able to understand the personality of the person you are communicating with. You must understand the other party before you can effectively communicate with that person. So I would like you to take note of these 5 important skills, and they will help you as we move into the courses of communication breakdown in marriage. So if you have any question, I want you to type them on the chat, and we would move on with that. So without wasting your time, I'm going to hand it over to the presenter for today, who you all know. He's going to deal with the next part of this lesson. So Dr. Blessing Ude is here with us. You can see her beautiful face with her Valentine red clothing. So Dr. Blessing Ude has a doctorate in counseling and a master's degree in family life education. And so we want her to take on and go on with the next part of this presentation. So over to you, Dr. Blessing. You can go on and continue from the rest of the slide.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Godwin, who happens to be my husband and very cute and funny. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking out the time to be here for our seminar today. It's a joy to be able to see and have you to be a part of this and program. Dr. Godwin actually did an amazing job with the introduction and the first section of this seminar. And I particularly like the fact that he pointed out that there is a difference between communication and effective communication. And as he was talking, I just remembered that a scenario whereby I was communicating with a young lady. And, you know, sometimes when you're typing and you just leave your caps lock on, it starts, it's all capital, right? Capital case. So I found myself actually typing all what I wanted to communicate with her in capital. And when she got it, she was angry. She thought I was yelling at her, not knowing that it was my computer. I left my caps lock on and it all became capital case. So I was trying to communicate, but I didn't communicate effectively because just like one of the points he talked about, the 5 types of communication skills. I didn't realize that lowercase or uppercase actually could communicate different things to people. And that's why it's very important that when we're trying to communicate, we should make sure that we intentionally want to communicate effectively. So that was a great point. I really picked from that. So thank you so much for that. And like he pointed out, communication is very, very, very important. At the core of every healthy relationship is the ability for the people involved in that relationship to be able to successfully communicate with one another. Previous research and theories actually have emphasized that communication or the lack thereof it's a predictor of either marital satisfaction or you can say relationship satisfaction and even divorce. Communication can be difficult because the individuals or the parties involved come from different backgrounds. They could come from different backgrounds. They have different experiences. And sometimes their cultures are really different. So all these things actually affect the way that people communicate to one another or to each other. In addition, 60 to 90% of all communication skills, like Dr. Godwin pointed out initially, consist of either the facial expression or the body language or your eye contact or your tone, which is really very, very important. So when you're trying to communicate with somebody, it's very important that you intentionally think about it and ask yourself, what am I trying to communicate? If I communicate this way, what am I saying? Your tone especially is very important. You can be yelling at somebody and you're trying to communicate you love the person. Of course, that is contradictory. So effective communication has to be intentional, like Dr. Gordon already told us. We've had the privilege of actually counseling a lot of families, a lot of couples, and we have discovered that most of their issues have been rooted on improper communication, lack of proper communication. There have been a misconception of things that were the couples or the individuals were trying to communicate. And that's why poor communication has been established to be the largest contributor of conflict in every relationship. So I am going to start my screen sharing as we are going to be looking at the causes of communication breakdown in every relationship. So bear with me as I start screen sharing. Okay. Moment. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. Just gonna take me a minute to just get that down up here. Okay. Oh, perfect. I have it here. Awesome. All right, I believe everyone can see my screen. If you can see my screen, please kindly tap a yes on the chat so that I know that I'm taking everyone along because I don't want to leave anyone behind. I might see a yes on the chat. Yes, awesome. Perfect, thank you. So we are going to be looking at, I just have 20 minutes and I believe I've used about 5 minutes. So I will not go in depth, but I will be enumerating the different points that causes communication breakdown in marriages. And the first one we will be looking at is wrong perspective, wrong posture. And I've seen that in so many relationships, in so many couples, and so many people when we talk to them. Oftentimes, one of them often feels that he or she is the standard. In other ways, they say, my way of looking at things, my way of doing things, my way of resolving issues is the best. I know, it's like they have that I know it all kind of mentality. So you had better listen to me. But that is a wrong posture to have in a relationship. Proverbs says that the way of a fool seems right to him, but a wise man listens to advice. In other words, a fool thinks that I know it all, it's always is on my way or the highway, I know everything, but really nobody knows everything. A wise person is actually somebody who knows but wants to listen to get more information to add to the knowledge that they already have. That's wisdom. So in other words, in a relationship, if one party always thinks that they are the one that know it all and the other person doesn't know it, or the person has to listen or always obey or always have to follow what they say, it causes communication breakdown. It affects a lot of things in that relationships. So that is a wrong posture. In other words, what are we trying to say? If you want to effectively communicate in a relationship, you do well to listen to each other, because especially in a marriage relationship, the man and the woman are different, which I will point out later on. So their perspectives are different. So you do well to actually listen to the other person's perspective. There's something that you will always get or be able to learn or be able to add to what you already know, and things become better for both parties. The second thing is, this is the way I am. My partner had better get used to it. Yes, that is, I've heard that a lot. And that is an excuse for somebody who doesn't want to change. If your habit is causing frictions in your relationship, having the posture that this is the way I am, you gotta accept me, I'm not gonna change my method of doing things, my methodology, will cause a lot of problem in that relationship. If you really value that relationship, if you want that relationship to soar, you do well to actually ask for help, find ways of changing that habit. Habits indeed can be changed. Habits that destroy relationships should be changed. It's very important. The third one is wrong assumption. My partner can guess what I'm thinking. Hey, nobody is a God. Nobody knows what is in the mind of the other person. So if you do not open your mouth to actually tell the person what's in your mind, there's just no how the person will know. I remember a lady saying, oh, he should know that it's my birthday and I like this and I like that. Why didn't he get that for me? Unfortunately, the person that she was talking about was ignorant of all those things. There was just no how he could know that this was what she wanted, except it was communicated. So please do not allow your partner to guess. Talk to them, let them know what you actually want, what you're actually thinking about. Another person says, or another posture says, it is better to have peace and not raise problems. And I know a lot of people want to have peace, you want to have quiet in the home, which is good. We desire that. But then there is a detriment to that too. When there is a problem in a relationship and it is not confronted, a lot of people like to avoid confrontation, but good confrontation can actually be good in a relationship. Sweeping problems under the rug is never a good thing just because you want peace in the home. That problem is just going to keep growing. And I want to use this illustration of a tree. We often know that a tree, if you want that tree to be destroyed or a plant, you have to uproot it. When you uproot a tree, what happens? The tree dies, the plant dies. However, if you try to either clip it or amputate it, or sometimes we try to prune trees to make it look beautiful, what do? You're just only cutting a part of it. But does it still grow again? Yes, it does. And that's what happens sometimes when we try to avoid confrontation, avoid discussing or talking about the issue in a relationship. We're just clipping that tree and it's gonna grow, it's gonna be there, except we deal with the root issue. You talk about the issue, you uproot the tree. That is the only time that the issue or the problem will be destroyed. So please do not avoid confrontation. Don't avoid talking about your issues. Don't sweep it under the rug. Deal with it. It is for your own good. If my partner doesn't want to talk, why should I go through the trouble? You're a team, especially in a marriage relationship. And that's one good thing about it. The heart of man is desperately wicked. Man is so selfish that if you leave man alone, all they want is me, myself, and I. Every man, when I use the word man, I'm referring to man and woman, okay? So everybody thinks about themselves. They want what is good for me. But then once they realize that in a marriage relationship, specifically where you're a team, what happens to one person also happens to the other person. For instance, if there is no money in the house because of financial improper financial handling, you didn't handle your finances properly, and there is a problem, and there's no money. Hey, if you can't pay your mortgage or you can't pay your rent, what happens? They're not only going to kick one person out of the house, they are going to kick everybody out of the house. So in other words, what happens to one person actually happens to the other person. So it is not just about you, it's about both of you, because you are a team, and that's the reason you have to go through the trouble and talk about it, because it's going to affect you as well. It's not only affecting the other person. Another posture is, what is the need to talk about it again? Yes, you need to talk about it again because it was not handled. The issue was not, the root was not uprooted. It was just clipped. It was just pruned. So the problem is still there. And as long as the problem is still there, there is going to be conflict in that relationship. So whenever you hear the person bringing it up again, that means it wasn't properly, the issue wasn't properly resolved the last time. That means you need to talk about it. You need to resolve it. If you can resolve it for yourself, go and find help, or else it's going to keep on cropping up in different ways, different faces. It comes in different, it shows up in different ways. And that's not a good thing. What it does is it causes a chasm between both of you. It keeps driving a wedge between you, and you keep going apart, and that's all of a sudden here we have irreconcilable differences. You hear people talk about that. That's because the issue was never resolved. They kept on sweeping it under the rug. They kept on avoiding talking about it. And it keeps on driving a wedge between them. And before you know there's a love lost. You don't find yourself loving each other anymore. That is why you need to talk about it. And one other posture is time will heal. Yes, we've heard about that, but then if you don't deal with the issue, healing becomes almost impossible. And that's why you hear people talking about forgiveness therapy. Forgiveness therapy is very, very important, because when you forgive, you deal with it, you talk about it, you forgive, you deal with the issue, healing comes. Healing is possible when you apply that forgiveness therapy. So we have talked about the wrong perspective. We have looked at the different postures that people present in a relationship. So the second thing that we're going to look at is gender biases. What did I mean by gender biases? Men and women are totally different. We perceive things differently. That was the way we were created. There was a research that was conducted, and it involved the imaging of the brains of nearly 1,000 adolescents. And they found that the male brains had more connections within the hemisphere, while the female brains had more connection between the hemispheres. In other words, the male brain and the female brains were wired differently. The research suggested that the male brains were wired to be optimized for motor skills, while the female brains were optimized for combining both the analytical and the intuitive thinking together. And that makes their communication, the way they communicate, totally different. So another research suggests that the men, they connect from the front to the back, from the front to the back of the brain, while the women connect from the left to the right. I am not a neurologist, so I'm not going to go in depth to start talking about it. But then the purpose of the whole thing was the research was to decipher the fact that the way men and women communicate, perceive communication, receive communication differs. And bearing that in mind, there's a scripture that says, dwell with each other with understanding. You need to understand how a man functions and how a woman functions if you want to effectively communicate in a relationship. Purpose, let's talk about purpose. Most men communicate to exchange information, and that is really true. They are goal-oriented, so they want to exchange the information that will help them achieve their goals. But women communicate because they want to connect. Women are relationship-oriented. We want to connect, want to talk, not because we have anything important to talk about, not because they really want to point out something, but just because they want to connect with you. And that is who they are. So you need to understand that this is how the female functions and how the male functions, so that when you communicate intentionally and effectively. The second thing that we are going to be looking at is expectation. Most women share problems to receive emotional support. Yes, because they're relationship oriented, but most men lecture the problem because it's all about goals. You might want to, I'm just going to give an example with my husband. I remember oftentimes when I go to talk, share a problem that I have with him, he wants to solve a problem. And he starts looking for ways to solve the problem. And I told him, I don't want you to solve the problem. I just want you to hear me out and just tell me everything is going to be okay. So you see, a man's mind is, I want to solve a problem. But a woman's mind is, I just want to connect with you, just be with you. I just want you to hear me out and I'm okay. Just tell me it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. And but this, not in all cases. Some cases, yes, problems to be solved. But oftentimes, women want relationship. That is the point I'm trying to pass across. Tasks. Most men are single task oriented. And most women are actually multitaskers. Yes, actually there was a study on that too. And that study raised the possibility that male brains are wired for focus, while female brains are for multitasking. That is why a woman can have a baby, she's a mother, she's a teacher, she's a nurse, she takes care of the house, she's also a career person, she does so many things at once, but oftentimes, most time, men only focus on one thing alone while women are doing things. That is the way they are wired, but it's very important that for you to be able to understand all these things. Problem resolution, where they talked about it. Most men actually withdraw to resolve a problem. Yes, they want to go to a quiet place. They want to take their time to think about it, to analyze it to find a resolution. But women, they just want to share to get emotional relief. And I think it works in line with an idiomatic expression that says that a problem shared is half solved. So I think that's the way women think. They think that once they share their problems, it's half solved. But men want to go spend some time somewhere to find resolutions. These are differences that we really, really have to look into. Vulnerability. Most men do not want to appear vulnerable by asking for help. Yes, it's about their ego. Oh, I don't want to appear weak, because men always want to appear strong, But women, actually, most women, they tend to appear vulnerable to attract help. And that's why you find that some women, once they have a problem, they start crying. Even when they don't need to cry, but they start crying. Why do they want to cry? Because they know if they cry, you're going to come to them and ask them, what is it? I need help. Can I help you? Because they appear vulnerable. When sometimes they're not really vulnerable, just because they want to attract your attention. They want to attract your help. Most men are independent and avoid intimacy. And women, they enjoy intimacy and they depend on it because of who they are. Remember, I said men are goal-oriented, women are relationship-oriented. Most men they like to talk in public. Why? Their ego. Because they feel that the more they spend time talking in public and people are listening to them, they attach their importance to that. But women, oftentimes, because they want intimacy, They speak more in private. They talk a lot more in private than in public. And another thing that results of that causes that is their insecurity. They feel insecure oftentimes. A lot of women feel that they don't have what it takes. Remember, not all women, but most of them do feel that way. Men, they gain significance when they are out talking and doing things. They attach their values somewhat. It's kind of like they align their values somewhat with what they do, what they say, being out in the public and doing things. But women are not like that. When dealing with issues, because of the fact that their brains have been wired to focus, men deal with the issue one at a time, but women run from one subject to the other. And I remember I always like sharing the story of a man that came back one day, and as usual, how couples are always supposed to behave. The woman was like, Dylan, welcome, you know, kiss and a peg and a hug and all that stuff. How was your day? The man said, my day was fine. I was able to sell this car in the market and I made a lot of profit. Now he went to the woman, how was your day, darling? Oh, my day was great. I went out today to the mall to buy something and I met Gloria. Gloria was there. Gloria is so old now. Gloria looks this. She told me this. And after that, we went to another mall and hey, before she actually got to what the man wanted to hear, she spent a lot of time talking about different things, different topics. And sometimes I'm like, okay, what are you saying? You know, so, but that is how men and women communicate. None of them is better than the other, bear in mind, but this is just who they are. So if you understand that this is how this person communicates, you're able to relate to them in a better way, because you know that that is not who they are. You know that they do that not because they despise you or want to hurt you, but because that is their makeup. Understanding is a key to be able to communicate effectively in a relationship. Most men talk directly and factually, while women talk indirectly. We already talked about it. Another area that we can look at, another cause of communication breakdown, is self-centeredness. Me, myself, and I believe I've mentioned it a bit earlier on before. My partner's duty is to make me happy. Oftentimes we've discovered that relationships that have been successful have been a relationship whereby one partner esteems the other person better. When you esteem the other person better, you think about the other person more, you want to make the other person happy, you think about the other person more than you. That reduces a lot of friction in marriages, because man, naturally, the nature of a natural man is to be selfish, and all they think about is themselves. Unless my partner changes, I cannot be happy. Well, you're going to wait for a long time, because oftentimes it's hard to change somebody. You can only pray that they change. But then sometimes you can also look inwards to yourself and ask yourself, what can I do to help the situation become better? So in other words, instead of focusing on the person, because the person might not want to change, maybe you can focus on yourself and ask for help and look for a way that you can navigate the situation, you can navigate the circumstances, pending when or if the person will ever change. But do not dwell on that, because what happens is that it builds up bitterness, resentment in your heart. And what that does is, obviously, you know that once you're angry with somebody, it's hard for you to bond with that person. It's hard for you to relate to that person. It breaks your bond. It breaks the bond of every relationship. So do not expect too much of a person. Rather find a way to navigate the issue. Poor child model, role models. I believe Dr. Ude mentioned, Dr. Godwin mentioned it a little bit earlier on. It's so amazing that children consciously and unconsciously play out what they saw when they were children. In other words, the way they saw their parents behave, do things. Oftentimes in their new home, they do the same thing too. So if your father was dominant and the mother was a subjugate mother, oftentimes that is how you find what you find yourself doing. You find yourself dominating in your new relationship, because that is the model that you saw subconsciously. That is what you see. You know, that's why they say actions speak louder than words. It's true. Kids look at what you do much more than they hear what you say. They copy what you do rather than hear what you're telling them to do. So role models affect communication, the way the new the couples or the individuals involved in that relationship communicate as well. Absent father or mother, if they are absent, it affects that child. And that is why every very parent here is very, very important, that you parent intentionally, because the way you parent that child is going to definitely affect that child in future and generations to come. So you see, life is not really about you. It's not about you when you look at that, because it affects so many people. There are so many people that are linked to you, linked to what you do. And that is why we cannot act carelessly. You got to act on purpose, because your life affects somebody's life, which affects somebody's life, and it trickles down like a domino. The exalted father who is unapproachable. Yes, there are some fathers that it's so hard to talk to them. When their kids see them, they are like shivering. They can't talk to them. They can't approach them. And oftentimes when those kids grow up, they think that's the best thing, because they think that makes them a man of the house. Or yeah, and they do the same thing too. A nagging mother, and we know what nagging does, complaining and complaining and complaining. It's not the best thing. I know we said confrontation, but you confront on purpose, but not keep nagging. There is a difference between talking and confronting, a good confrontation, and nagging. And nagging can be quite destructive, because what it does is that abuse of resentment in the heart of the other person, because you keep on making them feel that they are not good enough all the time. They resent you. The picture you can see on the screen, this used to be a man and woman. Oftentimes, what did they do? They always face each other, hug each other, and all this stuff. But see their posture. One is facing that way, the other one is facing that way. There is a break in their communication. Why? Because lots of resentment, lots of bitterness, lots of unresolved issues, conflicts that have not been dealt with and resolved with properly. The quarrelsome parents, not a good thing. It affects relationship. And I'm just going to quickly end. Past experiences or failures to resolve conflicts, we talked about it before, so I'm not going to dwell upon it again. So once there has been communication failure, sometimes people are a little bit cold, having a cold, they have a cold feet, they don't really want to attempt to resolve it, maybe because the way the resolution process wasn't a good one. The resolution process was a nightmare or a trauma for them. So as a result of that, they do not want to do that again. So that's why it's very important that that's why we're doing this, so that you can know how to resolve conflict and be able to try to, because conflicts are inevitable in every relationship. In fact, any relationship where there's no conflict, I question that relationship. Something is wrong, because you're two different human beings, two different perspectives. So you're bound to have two different opinions, but then the way the conflict is handled or is resolved is what really matters. We talked about understanding the difference between man and a woman, so I'm not going to talk about it again. And the last point I will be mentioning is unwillingness to acknowledge that there is a communication breakdown. You're living in denial. You're telling yourself it's not the truth. Hey, if you keep on living in denial, that is not going to stop the issue. All it does, it compounds the issue. There is a chasm between you. The wedge is broken. There's a wedge, and it keeps on driving you apart. And what happens is, oftentimes, especially when it's not spoken, it's in the heart of the individual, there becomes an explosion. And when there's for instance, when there's a bomb explosion, what happens? It destroys so many things that you cannot even get back again. It causes an irreparable damage. That's what happens. And that's what happens when you don't resolve conflict. It keeps building. One day there's an explosion and the person says, I don't want to do anymore. And they don't even want to try to resolve it. That is why when you notice initially, nip it at the bud. Don't just sweep it under the rug. Take care of it. Do not ignore it. Do not tell yourself it does not exist. That does not remove the conflict. It only compounds the issue. Do not blame your spouse and expect a change. It takes two to tangle. It takes two of you to make a relationship work. And it also takes two people to bring conflict in a marriage. So do not blame the other person. Rather look for ways that together you can resolve your issue. Waiting for the other spouse to make the first move towards fixing the problem. Be the bigger man here or the bigger woman here. Be the mature person here and take the bold step. In as much as sometimes it might not be your fault, that's okay. Because you cherish the relationship so much that you want the relationship to work. So be the first person to take the bold move, or else if you wait for the person might never do anything and the problem still exists. So be the bigger person, take the first move, And if possible, sometimes take the blame, that's fine, because you want to resolve the issue, because you care about this relationship very much. And the last thing is totally abandoning any efforts to improve any effective communication, like I said before. It will not, it will not solve. It causes a lot of breakdown, a lot of damage. And a proverb says that a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. Remember, the key thing is that a word fitly spoken, fitly spoken, it's like apples of gold in settings of silver. And that is where I'm going to end, because I believe my time is up. So I'm going to hand over to Dr. Gordon, as he's going to take the other part. I believe we're going to have a question and answer segment. So I hand it over to him. Over to you, Dr. Gordon. Thank you so much for listening, guys.
All right. All right. So release the screen for me. Thank you very much, Dr. Blessing Ude. What a wonderful presentation. What an incisive, detailed analysis of causes of communication breakdown. You know, one of the challenges we have amongst counselors is, should we be directional or should we mirror? Should we mirror the client or should we be directional? Most counselors believe that we should mirror the client or the counselee. Mirroring means following the lead of the counselee, whatever he wants, whatever he appreciates, whatever he says, you just repeat, you just tag along, just give a listening ear, and so that the person can feel comfortable and be able to feel relieved and feel happier than when the person visited your office. Yeah, it works emotionally, bringing a soothing comfort. But when it comes to a crisis in marriage, which often results due to communication breakdown, you have to deal with it. And this is where a lot of couples, they just want to run away from it. No, you got to deal with it. So the sum total of Dr. Blessunude's presentation, the summary is that anything that breaks down communication in a marriage is an attack on that relationship, and it must be tackled. Now, pay attention to this. You are not fighting each other, you are fighting against the problem. You see, you are not enemies to each other. This is what the enemy will want you to see. This is what you might think. This is what you might feel. You see, but see the problem as an external invader that must be tackled. Yeah, someone else may be the conduit through which the problem comes. For example, a man may mismanage funds, or a man may have problems with external affairs or anything else that brings issues and conflicts in the marriage. It should not be looked at as if though the man or the woman involved is a criminal or has committed an unpardonable sin. No, both of you work as a team. You should fight that invader, fight that problem to resolve it. You see, so the problem most couples have is that they look at each other as the enemy. Oh, you caused this. Oh, you did this. Of course, yes, someone became a conduit through which the problem came into the relationship. But for that invader to be dismissed and destroyed, both of you must come together to attack it. In that case, you don't have to continue to say, I blame you. I still blame you. You have always failed. You have always shown that you can handle anything. I don't know what made me marry you. You are no, 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 no. You've got an enemy. The problem is an invader. Team up together and deal with the problem. Remove the problem so that there will be an open door for that relationship. I'm going to share this with you. I just read it the other day. A woman was telling the husband, you've always been using the word I. Can't you just say we? From this day forward, always say we. So something happened with the maid, like it happens in some other places. And then the wife confronted the husband and said, what happened with the maid? Her features are changing. I think she's pregnant. So the man was about to tease the woman. So the man said, we impregnated the maid. He said, we impregnated the maid. So it was a joke, but it's just one of those things that we learn as you grow older in relationships. Both of you are together in a game of life to fight to raise a godly home and godly kids and godly children. You've got a lot of enemies. Some of them you see, some of them you do not see. These enemies are going to fight to do what? To destroy that foundation you are building. Marriage is ordained by the Lord. It's a foundation for every healthy community. This is why it's under attack. It's under heavy attack. And so we want to encourage all of you who participated in today's seminar and to let you know that there is hope, that no matter what you might be going through or what you're facing or challenges that you probably feel that is intractable and incurable, or it can never be resolved, you have opportunity to look at that problem as an invader, not your spouse. Your spouse is not a problem. The problem is an invader. You must tackle that invader. So to just round up before we entertain your questions, don't forget what I said. Paradigm. If you understood these three keywords, you would understand how to see a problem and conflict from today onwards. You are a product of paradigms. Paradigms are the influences you've had in your life. If your parents went through a situation, you are bound to repeat that because paradigms are internalized subconsciously. Paradigms are internalized subconsciously. So you will need a different paradigm to dominate or replace a bad one. You might be raised in a family where the woman is the head of the house and the man is literally subordinate. So oftentimes, people who are raised in that environment grow with that mindset. They get into a new relationship with that kind of mentality. And if they are married with a dominant man, there will be a conflict, a serious one, because the woman will be trying to exercise the dominant feature because that was the environment she was raised in. And the man is already naturally a dominant person. So there will always be who should be in charge. That's the key to understanding paradigm. So what do? You begin to find ways to edit or to upturn or to imbibe the right paradigm to enable that relationship to flourish. You can also be raised in a paradigm where the family is so large and everybody shouts and speaks so loud, nobody listens to one another. And then you marry into a quiet family where everything is detailed and organized, and you'll be wondering what kind of hell you married into. Everyone is shouting and screaming. And you don't want everyone to be like you, everyone to be calm and calculated and disciplined and detailed. And it never works that way. So you see, you are bringing your paradigm into a different or a new environment. So it's important to understand the influence of paradigm. They subconsciously affect your relationship. But you must evaluate the paradigm. And if it is not helping you move forward in life, you need to upturn it. Learn from right people. Learn from right individuals, right paradigm. Learn new skills. Never stop learning. Never stop saying, I have the capacity to be better than I am today. There is hope for you and your relationship or your marriage. Now we talked about perspective. You must have the right perspective about marriage. Some time ago, I talked to a young man and he said to me, I will never get married, but I will have children. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, because I would never be able to live with a woman. but you want to have kids. So you see, that perspective affects a lot of people. They have that worldview that you can have kids without being married. And don't expect that individual to ever have a healthy relationship. Perspective, very important. Perspective is just a functional worldview. And then the last point I talked about is personality. You are not a victim of your personality. Don't ever say things like, oh, this is who I am. I was raised in a home where everybody's quick-tempered, therefore I cannot afford to change it. This is who I am. We were all born a little bit skewed. Some of us were raised in a skewed environment, but we must learn how to improve and become better. Learn new skills. That was exactly what our speakers said today. If you understood the causes of conflicts in a relationship, then you'll be able to prepare yourself with how to handle them and how to deal with them. So on this note, we'd like to thank all of you for showing up for today's class or today's seminar. We're looking forward to host another seminar in the next couple of weeks, maybe in about 4 to 6 weeks. We're going to have another seminar to cover the next part of this topic. We just stopped halfway because of our time, but the next seminar, we're going to move on to discuss other important aspects of communication and communication skills. All right, so we're going to open up the chat and then allow all of you to be able to raise your hands if you want to ask a question, or you can type it on the chat. Raise your hand if you have a question. You know how to raise your hands? Okay, anybody has a question, you can type it on the chat. You see the chat box is it's just there. If you click on more, you'll see the chat. Then you can type in your question, or you can also just raise your hand. That is an icon where you raise your hand, and then you have the opportunity to talk. All right, so thank you very much. Dr. Joe Awize, he's also a counselor. It's good to have you here. Okay, so
thank you, sir. God bless you and Mama for this teaching. We are blessed to have you as a mentor.
Glad. Thank you very much. Thank you for showing up for today's class. So any other question? Anyone else with any contribution before we call it a day? All right. So I'm going to say that we've had a wonderful time, and it's been nice to have all of you here. So looking forward to the next class, which will be announced. And we hope to have your friends and your families all across the world join us as we continue to pursue healthy homes. Healthy homes make healthy communities. And it's our job to ensure that we make our own contributions to enhancing the health of marriages across this nation, right from here in our community. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye.